So on my book recommendation list, this book has to be at the top for infrastructure books. And quite frankly, this has got to be, if you're in the Raleigh or North Carolina market, this is probably the best infrastructure book that I know of because not only does it go into depth on the different types of infrastructure and how they're installed, it uses the city of Raleigh as a real life case study. So the author, Scot Huler, lives in Raleigh, works in Raleigh, and he wrote this book from his personal perspective. So he, throughout the book, goes through and traces back different utilities, power, water, stormwater, from his house to their source. So he goes through this journey of explaining in great detail how the water in our community comes from its original source all the way through to his home, right? So most people think of water, they just turn on the tap and poof, there's your water. But in reality, there's a whole lot of steps and a whole lot of processes that that water goes through to get to your house. Same with power, same with sewer in the other direction, leaving your home. Where does the sewer go? Where does your trash go? Where does your recycling go? All these things are discussed in great detail in On the Grid. So if you're at all interested in cities or design or urbanism or placemaking, I think it's critical that we all understand the various infrastructure and subsystems that go into our cities. And quite frankly, they're usually out of sight and out of mind. And if we don't start to think about and understand how these systems come together, how these systems support our development patterns, I think we're going to be missing out on some key details to making our places and spaces better. So if you haven't yet read it, I would highly recommend On the Grid by Scot Huler, especially if you live in Raleigh. I think it's for anybody in the development space, anybody in the AEC, architecture, engineering, construction industry, anybody who is just interested in cities and places and spaces. And if you live in Raleigh, anybody who lives in Raleigh, I think would get a ton out of this book.